Okay, hi folks. I've been trying to do this a couple of times. Hopefully this will come through with clear audio and no skips in the video. I'm just using my laptop microphone to speak into, so let me know if you can hear it clearly or not. This is Neil's likely final sealed pool for the Arena Direct. So I've loaded it into Sealed, or follow the link rather, and I'm going to try and build it and talk through my thinking, and any opinions or feedback, it'd be great. Hopefully this will make sense. My approach is usually just to look first at the rare cards and find out if there's any grouping that sort of points in one direction or another. And very clearly from this we can see that blue artifact cards are in 4 of these top 5 in the rows. So all of these are either artifacts or refer to artifacts and are blue or colorless. Raphael's technique is blank because even if you sneak it, you're bringing back a card to your hand, so you're at least losing 1 card to discard it. So your opponent's always getting the advantage from that. And Mondo Gecko, I think, might be fine and play it in a blue deck, but like you need to have it activated multiple times after it does combat damage to draw some cards, so I don't think that's really realistic. So first stage is rares and mythics, probably the most powerful cards, and of these they point towards blue artifacty stuff. Okay. My next step is to go through each of the colors, filtering by creatures and mana cost, and see, because Sealed deck limited magic is almost exclusively about attacking and blocking, and that's what creatures do. So do we find any creatures that, or any colors that give you a hint towards playing them or not based on their creatures? In white, Mighty Mutanimals is one of the best cards in the set, even though it's only an uncommon. I quite like Leonardo, Leader in Blue, and April O'Neil as far as like enabling sneak is concerned. But the rest of these cards I can take or leave based on whether or not I'm white, or maybe red or black in this case for the Ninja Cavalry and the Foot Elite respectively. But most of them are curve fillers, so there's nothing that really jumps out to me in white apart from the Mutanimals as far as creatures go. And then we go to blue, and what I notice straight away is there's lots of them. Are they good? Okay, we've spoken about canning. Baxter Stockman, yes, that's another non-artifacty stuff. Nobody, if there are artifacts to bring back, like we've saw. I haven't looked to the rest of the deck yet, but this is usually pretty good to find a target, and even if not, a 3-mana artifact creature that has, in a blue-red deck, very easy casting cost, that has a scry is not nothing. We've got Donatello, which I really like. I found especially that this card is sort of a trump against red-based go-wide strategies, like the more aggro version of blue-red or the more aggro version of red-white. I've played those decks, and my opponent plays Donatello, and I have to spend so many cards to get it out of the way, otherwise it's just eating a small creature every turn, and they've already drawn a card from it. It's been something that's really impressed me. Again, things like Utrom Scientist, Slither Encrypted will play if we need them to fill a curve, but what's really interesting is these grouping of 1 and 2 drops. I think that's probably showing there's a high enough density of them that some kind of blue-based artifact aggro deck is likely something to look at, especially given how that complements some of our rares. Okay, black. This and this are powerful black effects. The rest of these, we can take them or leave them. They're really curve fillers, not cards I would really want to play in my main deck, and for that reason, I would sort of happily mentally put black in a box away from the rest of the pool, at least for the moment. And that sort of collapses the possible color combinations that we might be looking at, just because none of the black creatures are really that appealing. We go to red, so we spoke about all these guys, so let's look specifically at the mono red cards. So we've discussed all of these. Casey Jones, another nod to artifacts. Okay, a nod to going wide with casting multiple creatures early. Mutant Town Musicians, I have been impressed by them when the opponent doubled up on them and they were like a 3/4 or 4/4 tramplers pretty regularly. But I think that was a sort of unusual case rather than the expected one. I think in a lot of cases the 4-mana slot gets clogged for decks, and I'm not sure Wrath is the kind of thing Red is trying to do in this set. And it does sort of... I have played it a bit. It has that awkward point of you cast it, then the following turn you have to spend some of your mana to trigger its Alliance ability. Then you have to attack with it. And maybe you get to cast something with the remainder of your mana. But let's say you play this on turn 4, turn 5 you play a 2-drop, you're then relying that the top of your deck is giving you a 3-drop or lower. And sometimes those are situational. Basically, I haven't been super impressed with Wrath, but it's fine if I'm in the market for a 4-drop that has some bonus. But just reflecting back, you've got to do a lot of work to get an extra card from Raphael. You don't have to do that with the blue Donatello. It just gives you a card, and all it has is have an artifact. Okay, let's look at green. That was the color with the other rare, and we do have a nice uncommon to pair if we wanted to go the green route. It's not that Grunchuk and Dirtbag are amazing, but they are enormous for their cost. And there are situations where you can really make use of like tons of mana. I spoke about the Putrid Pals and the Gastromancer, like, were unlikely to be black, and these kind of fit into the filler role. And again, the only thing that really jumps out to me in green would be like these two if I'm blue-green. I quite like the Pachyderms. I think they're among the better quality cards, but they still suffer of being that 4-mana cost that just gets quite busy and contested. So in looking through our 5 different colors, wasn't impressed with black or white. Blue-red looked okay, but a lot of the cards in blue I think could fit into either green or red. So my first thought here is it's very unlikely that I'm going to submit something that isn't blue. I don't know what other direction to go. So that's at least step one. White and black probably out due to the creatures, some sort of teamer color for the creature base. And now let's look at the non-creature spells and see if that kind of helps us break the tie. So we'll go Artifacts, Instant, Sorcery, Enchantment. And then we'll look at each color individually just to check with the ones that we aren't playing. Like, these are sort of fine cards, but nothing too impressive for white. Like, this is a creature, but for me, given that these are the remaining white cards, I'm not interested in them. So I think that can go, and I might actually look at black to see if we can rule that out too. Okay, Stung by the Foot and Tainted Treats and Death in the Family. That's a nice interaction. But it means that we'd end up being maybe black-green, and that doesn't include blue when I'm applying a default or like applying a consideration that we've established blue is probably where we want to be, at least in a main color. The black creatures coupled with these black interaction spells, not super appealing to me. But maybe it depends on how much interaction we're looking for and what kind of direction we want to go with the blue deck. Excuse me. Looking at green, so we've got a Tenderize and a Lessons from Life, and I think access to like raw card volume has been quite good for me in Turtles Sealed. It's not always the fastest format, and you can take the time to spend mid-game drawing cards. Like, you probably want to develop your board first, but having that little boost in the mid-game when like there's a bit of a board stall or a bit of jockeying for position, and if one person just suddenly gets 3 extra cards in their hand for one in the mid to late game, they can often overwhelm, especially when so many of the cards are 2 for 1. It can kind of compound and pull you ahead. That the 3 cards you draw from this actually turn into the effect of being 5 or even 6 or more cards. There could be some situation where, like, there's a blue-green blade hitting black for the removal, like this everything pizza is mana fixing. I think I remember seeing a Mona Lisa in green as well for some mana fixing, and I've yet to look at the land. So that's a consideration. We'll look at the red non-creature spells. So we're seeing artifacts here as well, so we need to move those out of the way. Maybe if I deselect artifact. But no, that's not quite what I want to do, because no, I thought these Mouser attack were the different. I thought it was Mouser Foundry. So Mouser Foundry also fits into the artifact slanted strategy. Making Kang cheaper, it gives 2 tokens for it. It can be used later for removal. It can sit in play as an artifact that's kind of difficult to deal with for the opponent. It's not like for a Donatello trigger, let's say, on turn 4. But still, it's a 2-mana 1/1. Not super exciting, but I can see that probably building a red-blue deck to at least kick things off might be a reasonable take. But I don't want to assume that that's because it's the obvious looking build, that's where we definitely end up. So I looked at green already, looked at black, wasn't so impressed. White, yeah, that only had a handful. And then blue. So for blue, we've got the Sewer Valence Cam. It's another interesting artifact, and it plays into that tempo play. The same with the Bespoke Bow and Return to the Sewers. I was discussing Return to the Sewers with Neil, and in the format where it is sort of slower, because it's not a permanent removal, I think it can be a bit underwhelming. Unless you're really leveraging the tempo plan of like putting your opponent's creature on top, putting them back a turn, making them spend their mana again, and enable an attack. Maybe coupled with things like the Surveillance Cam or the Utrom Scientists to sort of tap stuff down and get some of your small creatures enabled to attack. But in general, if I'm more of a mid-range deck, I prefer not to play this because you're just spinning your wheels. Like, you spend a card to return their card to the top, they lose a draw, they cast it again, you're back to where you were, you are up a mutagen token, and maybe you've gained a mana advantage or two, but you're basically spinning your wheels. Okay. So that's strengthened my position that blue is where we want to be. And we've got a multi-land for blue-red, so yeah, it might be very unlikely for us not to be blue-red as a core base, so let's take a look at that and put on a strict color filter. Sort by mana value, we can look at both at the same time. So I'm just going to click anything that I think might fit in with the strategy of making small creatures, attacking with them, having things that care about artifacts in play, making a white board. So anything at all that supports that. Tempo-y as well. Like I mentioned, I was down on the Return to the Sewers, but because we've got such a quite an aggressive grouping of cards. Oh, we've got the Chrome Dome as well. I didn't figure out didn't click on the artifacts when I was going through the colors. And then there's like, maybe the Turtle Van fits in, like, filter cards by text. It doesn't let us do it down below. Oh, filter deck. There we go. So this puts a counter on a mutant or ninja or a turtle. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 targets there. 2 more here. 6, 7. 7 things that double up with the van. Separate out non-creatures. These Mouser Foundries kind of act as creatures, and so does the Turtle Van. So, does Machines is card selection and then inevitability with the triggers, plus some card advantage because you're effectively drawing 2 cards from it for 1 mana. And it's not even a card that that does nothing after you spend it in play. What I mean by that is, like, you play it from your hand. You've used a card, then later you draw two artifact cards from your graveyard, but you haven't actually used Dust Machines because it still does something after the fact. Okay, that's 27 with tons of 2-drops. 19 creatures is a lot. I'd imagine cutting some of the worst ones. In this deck, Kang surely is going to be like it's 8, so probably a 4-drop. Especially because, like, the Mouser Foundry doubles up. I'd be a little wary of this not having as much interaction as I would like. I would probably cut the Cryptid as among the worst of the creatures. Like, it's not an artifact. And it's not like we're really in a spot where we've got to have an extra 3-drop. Casey Jones is just always going to be a 2-for-1. I think I'd cut the Musicians for a similar reason to the Cryptid. I actually thought the Musicians was the 3-1 first striker on attack, and when it attacks you get to rummage. But we've got some card selection, like we're touching the top of our deck with Casey Jones, with Buzzbots, with Krang, with Dust Machines, with Surveillance Cam, so it's not like we're missing out on, even if this was the 3-1 first striker that rummages, it's not like we're really missing out too much on card selection or filtering. I'm not really sure how I would go about completing this deck, as in what I would cut to get to 23. Like, it might just end up being like a Wingnut, or maybe because we're playing so many artifacts, like, everything here references artifact. Okay, that's not going to... So I want to do type, actually. And then filter. Okay, so this is the type, and we've got 16 artifacts as a type. So we might afford to shave 1 or 2 down. So perhaps, like, one of the Mouser Mark II. I would prefer Mouser Foundry as a creature, but what it does is produce 2 different artifacts, which help with Krang, and it is another piece of interaction to go with our sort of sparse interaction. So I'd say that is probably one of the cards. And the last one, I don't know. Like, maybe it's Wingnut. But if we're making tokens from the Mouser Foundry, from the Cavalry, maybe from copying things with the Chrome Dome. I guess Chrome Dome pumps our artifacts as well, so it does it in a much less demanding way than Wingnut, so that's probably the cut. And then we're adding our mana and just mountains and islands. So I think this, I would say,